a goodwill beginner. All my good works are needles in hay, and I try to do right based on my own sight, just like a blind man who's standing in the way. And all that I've taken, it was sadly mistaken to bleed for my own, for my sake. Now everything I have was stolen or borrowed. All that I've taken is much more than I can take. I was a fool in the quickness of the sand, and I was a leper trying to save my own skin. But now I'm a man who knows where I stand on the rock of ages. That's where I stand. Lord, you bore my refuse. You are my refuge. You gave up everything when you threw it all away. You gave me life new. You carried my weight through the evening to the morning and to the day. I was a fool in the quickness of the sand. I was a leper
you go. Welcome to Calvary Chapel Greenville, Texas on this fine Wednesday night, August the 14th, halfway through this month. Does it feel like we just barely started this month or what? Whew, all right, big announcement stuff that we got going on here. I say big announcements, it's the same. Well, it's not really the same. There's some variations in there. Women's ministry, that's kind of the same. Psalms, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. in the Blue Room. And it would be the room just opposite of the dangling balloons at this point in time. So if you're walking around the building and you're like, those balloons seem kind of out of place, turn left, you're almost there. So that's Wednesdays there. Book of Job, we're there still on this Wednesday night. Looking forward, we're going to be here for a little while. It is a longer book, but we're kind of taking it in big bite-sized chunks, and for good reason, and it's not going to stop like that. We got a bunch of stuff to navigate through, so it's going to be really good. First Wednesday of the month typically would be Don. He's teaching on whatever he's teaching on. We don't know because he kind of surprises us with that every time. But also we do communion that night. We'll have to remind us to get some new fresh grape juice this time because last time I could only get the massive 1 gallon. Once you open it, it's done. So send that dude packing because we don't want moldy, weird grape juice. That's just awkward for communion. Next one coming up is September 4th, so we're looking forward to that. Men's prayer Friday mornings at 6 a.m. Now that we got the vents turned on properly, maybe that'll be a little bit nicer in there too. We probably ought to check that vent, just as a guess. So we got that going, men's prayer Friday morning, 6 a.m. Men's breakfast, next one coming up, should be August 24th. Now, I've said this before. Oscar, pay attention to what we got here right now, okay? Sometime in September, I believe we're going to go down to Garland. I have to confirm that with Dwayne, Pastor Dwayne and Garland. He said, hey, we possibly got a thing coming up, so make sure that they're still going to do that, or that's a definite on their side. And then that'd be a cool time to kind of go out there and, fellowship with a different church with their men and stuff like that. They're good, interesting people down there. And I can promise you will have your picture taken. Alex will be there. They have a photographer. Most churches don't have an official photographer, but Calvary Chapel Garland has an official photographer. And I'm telling you right now, that guy will get your picture. Hey, he's amazing. He's really good. Yes, and if you take... Okay. Well, then they won't know who you are. You just be some random guy there. Wear a different hat. Outside of that, Sunday mornings, we have started in the book of 1 John. We made it through the first 4 verses of 1 John this past Sunday. But we promise to go even further this coming Sunday. So how about that? 2 other things that I would say. The Calvary Chapel magazine, if you guys picked that up, fantastic. That is the more recent one, the fall edition. It is fall 2024, Calvary Chapel magazine. I talked to a pastor earlier today, and he said, man, I got some really cool pictures. I was just in Kenya, and he's going to try to submit it to those guys so they can, because they're the big O movement in Kenya. He recommended I go out there, or not really that I go specifically, but we need to, more people need to go out there. But that's kind of the hinting kind of a thing. And so, no, not yet. But interesting thing, apparently they speak with an English accent and primarily speak English, or at least most of them can speak English, if that makes sense. So interesting. You don't really think about it, but everybody tried to colonize Africa at some point. So some areas speak French, some areas speak English, and I'm sure there's some areas that speak Spanish. I don't know. Yeah, South Africa, definitely English. So anyways, in that magazine, it advertises the Calvary Chapel history book. Now, this is a big O reader. This can take you hours to look through this. Actually, probably take you days because it's a bunch of articles with pictures and more of the history side of things. Very interesting, compelling thing. I forget what they asked, but you look at the magazine, it'll give you the advertisement thing to say, there's where we look at it. That's my copy. If you want to borrow it, you can, but you have to bring it back because I ain't read it yet. But I'm also working through 2 books right now, so that's kind of like, it's there. I just discovered that I had it on Sunday. That's how stupid, and I've had this thing for a while. So I thought it was the magazines, and it was not. It was a book. That's when you know you've done things wrong. Anyways, all that said, I think that's pretty much all of it right there, right? Let's go here and fix this so I can read it. There we go. Tonight we are looking again at Job. Now tonight we're going to be looking in Job chapter 18 and 19. Bildad, that short feller, the Shoaff guy, he is now talking again. So let me ask you this weird question. Does God change? And the answer is no, he doesn't. I think one of the things I've been trying to kind of pull out of these as we go through these different chapters is, what are the differences that we see, right? So like when does God do something different? Well, the answer is he doesn't. Well, God allowed Satan to come after Job and do some damage, right? Well, that's kind of different. Well, okay, maybe so. But when you look in there, the character and the nature of God never changed in any of those situations, any of that time. But what you do have is the friends of Job. Again, we discussed how wonderful they are. But the friends of Job, and they are basically trying to explain to him how things work. And this is how God really is. The problem is they don't really know God. Many times we're talking to someone, or maybe we're interacting with them, and they're like, well, you know, God hates this, or God does this, or God does that, right? And so we can end up in this strange place if we just, say, oh, well, yeah, God hates whatever you hate, and that's just how it works. But then we find out later that, well, we're pretty wrong about stuff. There was the group out of, was it Kentucky or Kansas? What was it? Westboro Baptist. Remember those crazy people? They haven't been around that I know of for years now. But they were kind of a cult, and they were out there picketing funerals for veterans and so on like that. And they had signs that said, God hates, and then insert your person that you don't like the most. Who was it? Oh, it's everybody. Well, God hates this, God hates that. Well, I don't want to sit here and tell you what God hates and doesn't hate. The Bible does a fine job on that one. There are things that God doesn't like. There's things that God hates, and he even says in there that that's the case. But one thing I've found is when we repent and put our trust in Jesus, God, he's good with that. And did you know that you can be in a life of debauchery and sin and hell and all that torment and stuff like that, and realize where you are, repent, put your trust in Jesus Christ, and God will save you from that situation. And guess what? That's not a hateful thing at all. So we have to be careful, and especially in today's society, because it's so easy to say God hates you because of your sin. Well, we can make that argument right there, Todd. God hates the sin, and that's true. That love the sinner part is kind of hard to negotiate, but the reality is God so loved the world, which included everyone. So it's but God hated Esau, so it's like, well, then how do you navigate this then? Well, because those people who rebel against God, of course, God's not terribly favorable with. But here's the thing that really happens. God changes the hearts of people. And so for Bildad to come and start saying the things he does about Job, and he does, and he's not very nice about what he says. And for Job to kind of get defensive, and Job, be honest with you, man, his skin's all messed up, everything's died, things are falling apart. It's a pretty bad situation for Job. To be just perfectly transparent, it is a horrible time and situation for Job. And when you get in that bad situation, when things are going really, really bad, it's hard to look and say, there is my God. There's my Jesus. You know what I'm saying? It gets harder and harder to make that claim, to point and to say, my Jesus. It just does. Why? Well, because you're focused on self. And what we're going to find tonight is that Bildad is focused on Job and accusing him of everything. Now, some of the stuff is probably not bad as far as like Job is kind of, Job hasn't been bad necessarily, but he's been kind of starting to really get frustrated. When bad things happen to other people, and we talked about this before with America's videos or whatever they call them, and I enjoy it. One of my favorite things on YouTube to watch is where they surprise somebody. We'll say surprise. And they do something, and the person, they had that, I feel good, like that, whatever, but it's like he screams, right, at the beginning of whatever he sings, and then people, throw the thing they're cooking or whatever, and this, to me, it's kind of humorous, but the reality is we're kind of digging at people, aren't we? I'm not saying you can't have fun. I'm not saying you can't be entertained. But we have to understand that everybody has something they're navigating through right now with God. Everybody has something right now that they're navigating through just in life in general. I do, you do, everybody does. You say, well, oh no, my life is perfect. Well, then you're the only one. Everybody has something that you're navigating through. For Job, he's navigating through losing his children. He's navigating through losing all of his possessions, his animals, his everything. And now he's also navigating through the 3 worst friends possible. They started off well, but it didn't end that way. Well, Bildad, of course, after Job is trying to defend himself in chapter 17, and he kind of goes through this whole thing. I'm not going to give you the background to that because we pretty much have enough. But Bildad now is going to weigh in again. So this is, I called it Bildad part 2. It says in verse 1 of chapter 18, Then Bildad the Shuhite answered and said, How long will you hunt for words? Consider, and then we will speak. Why are we counted as cattle? Why are we stupid in your sight? You who tear yourself in your anger, shall the earth be forsaken for you, or the rock be removed out of its place? And so you kind of get this, like, who do you think you are, Job? And he's kind of accusing him of speaking off the cuff. Well, maybe there's some of that there. Has there been that from Bildad? From the other guys? 100%, right? When we get into a deep argument, what's the best thing we can do? Just start randomly saying things, right? That's what we're good at. If you get into an argument, you look at it post-argument and you say, that was dumb. On my part, on their part, on every part, it was just like we just started saying random things to see how far I could push the other person off the cliff. And so in the situation that you're seeing, you kind of have a little bit of that, not as much as we would have maybe in today's time, but Bildad sure is doing that. He's pushing and pushing, but you know, I think it's interesting because you see these become attacking words. If you've ever been in an argument, you've heard these words like this. Why are we stupid in your sight, huh? Why am I the stupid one? Translate it out, right, to something that we've been in an argument about. You know, why are we this? Why are you saying stuff? Man, you can't even talk right. You don't even know what you're saying. So it's like this is a playground style argument that's really kind of getting ingrained. That the unfair side of this is it's 3-1. 3 people busily tearing down Job, and he's defending, and he's ducking, he's dodging, he's saying all the right things that he can't even think of, and it just gets weird. Bildad continues in verse 5. He says, Indeed, the light of the wicked is put out, and the flame of his fire does not shine. The light is dark in his tent, and his lamp above him is put out. Job, you are a mess. Is that comforting words for Job? Man, these guys haven't comforted one day at all. I mean, they've just been dig and causing problems and making things more complicated. So he's basically setting up now that Job is just a mess. He says in verse 7, His strong steps are shortened and his own schemes thrown him down. For he is cast into a net by his own feet, and he walks on its mesh. A trap seizes him by the heel. A snare lays hold of him. A rope is hidden for him in the ground. A trap for him in the path. What is he saying? Everything that's happened to you, Job, guess what? It's your fault. Now, in fairness, have we ever done something that's our fault that kind of messed us up really bad? Yeah, we've done that. Plenty of times. If you do something that causes yourself great harm, you say, well, that wasn't from God. Well, that's true. But we have an insight that they don't quite have yet. We know that this is all, in a loose sense, from God. It's from Satan, but from the permission of God. And so God didn't say, well, go do weird things. He says, okay, you can do to this point and stop. You can do to this point and stop. So he kind of puts it on there. Basically, it's your fault. You're an idiot, and you're stupid, and we don't like you. I mean, it sounds kind of a rough way to put it, but that's really the reality of kind of where he's going with this. So as he goes in there and starts laying it out, imagine being Job at this point and just trying to kind of function with that and trying to see the small things of it. Imagine being in Job's mind like, man, I can't believe this. But Bildad continues, verse 11. Terrors frighten him on every side and chase him at his heels. His strength is famished, and calamity is ready for his stumbling. It consumes the parts of his skin. The firstborn of death consumes his limbs. He is torn from the tent in which he trusted and is brought to the king of terrors. In his tent dwells that which is none of his. Sulfur is scattered over his habitation. His roots dry up beneath, and his branches wither above. So again, dig, 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 right? Now, you've been in an argument where you say something and you're like, man, I probably shouldn't have said that. And then they turn those words against you. You've been in those, haven't you? Uh-huh. You said that. Well, I'm just trying to talk. And so Bildad's kind of trying that angle. He's using or attempting to use Job's words against him to try to narrow this down. And of course, you go back into it, and I don't want to take the time to do so, but when you go back, you see that Job is really trying to defend himself. Well, you know this. Well, you know that. And, maybe I did this. And so he's cementing it down. You're the problem. That their words may be used against him is kind of the mindset that he's running from. You have basically said you're an idiot, and I'm calling you out and telling you you're correct. Now, let me ask you a question. When we find ourselves in an argument, and we will, we always do, when we find ourselves in that argument, is it a good idea to just start attacking? No. What does attacking do inside of the argument? But that's what we always want to do. I'm just saying that. I know you're going, wait a second, John, I've seen you argue. Yeah, I know. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm telling you how it's supposed to be. Do what? She says I'm perfect, which tells me she's lying. You're perfect? Oh, it's not me, it's you. Oh, I see. We're perfect at arguing. That's for sure. But what happens? We kind of get blinded by this rage and we try to go after someone. You know what God tells us to do? And we'll see this more on Sunday mornings as we get through 1 John. You know what God tells us to do in those situations? To love them. How can you love somebody who treats you like that? That's a tough one, isn't it? Job doesn't hate his friends. He's really kind of testy with them, I'll tell you that. Have you ever been irritated with people in your life? It's like every person I've ever known in my life, right? At some point, they'll do or say something that'll cause you an annoyance, irritation, or something like that. But when that happens, we treat them with love. This is how you don't do it. If somebody comes in here and gets real mouthy with me, hopefully I think biblically at that time. I can't promise I always will, but I'll really do my level best. And when that time happens, and this frustrates people now, because, and again, I don't know we're near perfect, but I've been practicing this as a principle, and it's tough. But it actually annoys them even more to be loving and kind, because they want to start the fight, and they want it to continue to be a fight. Had a customer a while back, and I didn't do the thing he wanted in the timeline that he wanted it. It's like, I've been busy, I'm sorry. And the guy just ripped into me and chewed me inside and out. He goes, I thought you were a pastor. Well, I am. And you know what? I didn't raise my voice at the guy. I did what he asked me to do. Here's the stuff. And the timeline was a little over time. And again, it's how it worked out at the time. And he calls me back a few months later and he goes, man, no hard feelings, okay? He did that right after, but he did it again. He goes, no hard feelings about that, because I didn't jump up and yell. I said, that's my fault. I should have moved quicker, and I admit that. And I got no ill wills towards you. And the guy was thrown for an absolute loop. But if I'm supposed to have the character and nature of God, and how many times have we offended God and done something against him, and yet he still loves us? That's weird, man. I've met you guys. I know. Ain't none of that stuff right. Well, anyways, all that said, again, Bildad continues the attack, and this is the last little jot of his attack, and then we'll move on to Job. Verse 17 says, his memory perishes from the earth, and he has no name in the street. He is thrust from light into darkness and driven out of the world. He has no posterity or progeny among his people, and no survivor where he used to live. They of the west are appalled at his day, and horror seizes them of the east. Surely such are the dwellings of the unrighteous. Such is a place of him who knows not God. Now, if you listen to that last little section, he's attacking Job for the things that happened to Job. If nothing else in the world, this book teaches us definitely what not to do, how not to argue, how not to get in these places. It's difficult and impossible to show the love of Christ when we're so busy tearing somebody down for something that's in their past. Now, are we accountable to the things that we do? Yes. Right? But in the situation that we have here, Job didn't technically do any of this stuff. It happened to him. You know, when something bad happens to somebody and you're like, ha ha, you've seen that, right? That's basically what's happening here. Your close family member, personal friend, or whatever like that died. Ha, man, I'm so glad they're gone. Wait a second. Have you heard somebody say stuff like that? I have. You know, couldn't get rid of them fast enough. That kind of, people say that kind of thing. But, and as much as I hate to say that, and I really do, because sometimes there are people who just really get up my nose about stuff. I'm not going to drive over them with a car or nothing like that, but I'd just rather not see them kind of thing, right? We all have those people. But did you know they have a family? Did you know they have people that are close to them? Well, you think about when you're driving down the road, there was a road rage that happened in Anna recently. Anybody see that one? That was interesting. The guy gets out and he just starts slamming around in the car. Anyways, nothing too big. Nobody got shot. You know, it's Texas. You never know what happens, right? But we can't be triggered or set into that place where we just tear somebody apart for something that's out of their control. I know that was a weird illustration, though, because I just that hit me in the head. It's like this guy gets really mad about whatever's going on there, and he attacks them. Where's the forgiveness? If you drive down the road for any length of time, is there not a lot of forgiveness that has to happen? Lots of forgiveness, especially if you're driving around idiots, right? But we're called to love. Now, let me make this kind of thought here too. Does Bildad the Shuhite, does he not love Job? I think he does. He just is trying to be super helpful. Have you ever been helpful to somebody and they're like, stop helping? Yeah, that's a lot of us, right? I appreciate everything. I know you love me, but man, just go home. Just go away, man. I love you from a distance. It's going to work so much better. And I think that's kind of where this is happening now. Again, Bildad's kind of annoyed. They're kind of bickering. They're arguing about the stupid things. And here's the fun part, the things they don't know. And they're going to have a friend come along soon. We'll talk about that here in a few weeks. But they're going to have a friend who comes along and kind of straightens everything out. And then God comes and finishes the straighten out process. That's coming. So we still got to do a little bit more time dealing with these guys. But now let's jump down to Job chapter 19. This is where Job answers. Listen to this in verse 1. Then Job answered and said, how long will you torment me and break me in pieces with words? These 10 times you have cast reproach upon me. Are you not ashamed to wrong me? And even if it be true that I have erred, my error remains with myself. If indeed you magnify yourselves against me and make my disgrace an argument against me, know then that God has put me in the wrong and closed his net about me. Why you got to keep tormenting me? Job is seen for what it is. Why you got to keep picking on me, man? Why you got to keep doing this stuff? Why you got to keep doing that? Because, think Job really understands that these people, the reality is they care for Job. Obviously, they're opinionated, but they do care. But how long will you torment me, man? Why are you going to keep saying these things? You're just ripping me apart, man. Can you hear now the desperation in Job's voice and the words of Job as he's trying to figure out, why are you guys doing this? How frustrating has that got to be? You guys are just ripping and tearing and breaking and all that stuff. Yeah, so Job definitely is in that spot. And then he asked them probably the coolest question that I think he's asked yet. Are you not ashamed to wrong me? I mean, that's a valid question, isn't it? Are you not ashamed? I mean, can you see yourself? Do you hear yourself talking? You know, that kind of thing? I mean, come on. Are you not ashamed of this thing? Do you see the kind of ripping and tearing that you're doing? And so Job is still, look, what's interesting about this is Job's not really attacking them in the sense of saying, well, you guys are bigger sinners, you dummy. He hasn't done that. He's just asking some pretty solid questions. Now, we don't know with what intensity or what kind of verbal elevations he's hitting right here. So you don't know if it was like, let me try to do it two ways. Are you not ashamed to wrong me? Did he ask it like that? Doubt it. I'm guessing at some of these points, the volume is raised. You think so? Oh, I think so. Here, the person I have the most experience, and you bear with me on this, and the person I have the most experience arguing and fighting with is my wife. So, no? Oh, no, I promise you, you're the most experience I have with. We've been married for a bunch of years now. 28 years. 28 years, right? Okay. I've argued more with you in the last 28 years than anybody else under the sun. Now, when we're in the middle of an argument, do I say calmly, Jenny, I think your opinion is wrong? Is that what I say? Actually, I kind of do sometimes. Sorry. Is that the way she responds to me? No, it isn't. The walls begin to shake. The earth begins to rattle because I pushed the bear. I am an unfair fighter. I'll say that. I do not fight fair. Years ago, and this is telling on me, but I'm going to tell a secret of ours that we probably haven't told many people. But she's just like, rah, 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 yelling, right? And I just look at her because I'm like psychological game guy. And I'm like, does it make you feel good? Or forget exactly how I phrase it, but it was just like, that was a gut punch. But what I'm saying here is because people will, and I yell too. It's not like, I'm not this Mr. Holy, always softly spoken. Well, I yell too. Don't get me wrong. When I yell, people get nervous. That one guy at that car place got real nervous when I yelled at him, but he got my feathers ruffled. I don't know what to tell you. But you know what? I think in this place, in the time we're seeing here, I think there's a solid chance you hear some yelling going on. I want you to think about this for just a second. Job's one of God's people. Job is a sinner saved by grace. Job is somebody who struggles and has hard times with things. Do you think it's possible ever that he could have done something a little bit wrong? Oh, yeah. Do you think God still loves him even though he obviously, at this point, you know he's got to be yelling. I can hear it. When I'm reading, I just hear the yelling part going on. You think he's yelling? Maybe he's raised his voice. Maybe he's gritting his teeth. People do certain things. There's certain behaviors, and body language experts can tell you way better because I don't really know that stuff. But they can watch how somebody's using their body, using their hands, all that stuff, and tell you when somebody becomes angry. And it's like grit their teeth, they kind of burrowed, and they see that. I'm telling you right now, Job is pushed to a point. And even if it's true that I have erred, my error remains with myself. He's like, I'm not doing anything to y'all. So, if indeed you magnify yourselves against me and take my disgrace and argument against me, know then that God has put me in the wrong and closed his net about me. So, this is the thing between God and me. We get into arguments sometimes and we put ourselves and insert ourselves where we don't belong. Has that ever happened to you? Yes, right? You're like, not me. You think you're so holy, right? You guys are perfect, like you never had a problem, right? I'm telling you, some people, but not me. I've inserted myself so many places I don't belong. But Job has a good way to bring him back and say, don't go there. You've kind of been that person. Don't. So moving now down to verse 7. And we're taking this in big chunks, so you'll be happy. Verse 7 says, behold, I cry out, violence, but I'm not answered. I call for help, but there is no justice. He has walled up my way so that I cannot pass, and he has set darkness upon my paths. He has stripped from me my glory and taken the crown from my head. He breaks me down every side. I am gone, and my hope has he pulled up like a tree. He has kindled his wrath against me and counts me as his adversary. His troops come on together. They have cast up their siege ramp against me and encamp around my tent. Guys, you're tearing me down, but God's done so much better. Nowhere in here is he blaming God for all that's happened. He's just saying, this is what's going on. I know God's there. I know God's doing this. He's not blaming God for wrong. He's still trying to put in his head what's going on. He'll learn. We're half a book away from figuring all that stuff out. But, he's still trying to kind of put that together. Imagine the distraught side of that. Now, inside of our arguments, we've been talking basically argument 101 tonight, haven't we? Have you ever felt inside of your argument that I'm just done? I've had somebody yell that at me a year and a half ago. That was interesting. I'm done. You're done. No. That was a bad joke. Sorry. Who was here for that one? That was entertaining. We get really upset. You don't remember that? I'll remind you later. He hasn't been back since that day. Maybe one time. Anyways. But we are distraught. We're damaged. We're done. And it's just like we're devastated by the thing because not only did it not go our way, but we found out that we're 8 kinds of guilty or 8 kinds of wrong or 8 kinds of in a bad place. And so exactly the same thing is happening right here. He's just kind of flustered. Now moving down to verse 13. See how fast we're moving? Like lightning speed now. He has put my brothers far from me, and those who knew me were wholly estranged from me. My relatives have failed me. My close friends have forgotten me. The guests in my house and my maidservants count me as a stranger. I have become a foreigner in their eyes. I call to my servant, but he gives me no answer. I must plead with him with my mouth for mercy. My breath is strange to my wife, and I am a stench to the children of my own mother. Even young children despise me. When I rise, they talk against me. All my intimate friends abhor me. Who's he talking to now, right? And those whom I loved have turned against me. My bones stick to my skin, to my flesh. I have escaped by the skin of my teeth. Wonder where that came from. So, all the cool sayings in our life. You guys don't know skin of my teeth, do you? Anyway, so some people do that. Yeah. Biblical sayings that we all use. So in here, he's labeling out like nobody is on my side anymore. I'm all alone. Have you ever been lonely? I mean, because that's what he's describing out. Is this not kind of the description of when you feel the loneliest? Can you feel lonely in a room full of people? Yes, you can. Why? Because they hate you, or they don't love you, or they talk about you, or it's whatever thing like that, right? Is that possible? 800% it's possible. My most uncomfortable times in life are in rooms where I know nobody. And I feel very alone in that place. Now, these people are probably my best friends. We just talk, right? So I kind of understand that aspect of it. And I've been in rooms where people hate me, or they talk about me and talk trash on me. And it's like, and I don't really like that place either. And there's times and places when I'm around, and it's not limited to people that we work with, people that we know, family, friends, it's everybody. I mean, just nobody falls out of that category. And as you look there, I mean, even he's like seen that with his wife. I'm strange to my wife, to his own. I mean, we're talking one flesh, the person in his life. He feels completely outcast, lonely, and depressed. Is that what we're seeing? Exactly what I'm seeing. You say, well, I serve God, I can never be depressed. Whatever. The job of pastor has a high failure rate. Do you know why? Because most of them are depressed. Most of them have had all these problems. People talking trash. I have so fortunate. Everybody loves me, right? I've had people talk trash in here against me. It's fine. It hasn't happened lately, but there's been times when I walked out of this church going, God, I didn't want to go back there. There's been times. And it's tough in those times. Do what? Oh yeah, well I don't quote that guy anymore. She says the sheep bite. But I even had conversations about that guy today. The sheep bite, that's true. You don't have an attack lamb, but the sheep do kind of bite. A lot of pastors suffer with depression. A lot of pastors suffer with all sorts of stuff. And inadequacy, that's a big one for pastors. It affects everyone. And that's where Job is right now. I mean, his world's crushing down on him. It's the worst. Like, it can't get any worse than this. Oh, wait, no, it's going to get worse. These guys ain't going to stop yet. They're just going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing until it's God's time to come and push a little bit further. But when God does it, he does it in love to show, instruct, and edify and build up the man of Job. And that's cool. But notice that none of the friends do that. We'll get us out of here early tonight. Verse 21. I say that jokingly. You know there's no way we can get out of here early. Verse 21. Have mercy on me. Have mercy on me, O you, my friends, for the hand of God has touched me. Why do you, like God, pursue me? Why are you not satisfied with my flesh? Oh, that my words were written. They are now. Oh, that they were inscribed in a book. Still done there. Oh, that with an iron pen and lead they were engraved in the rock forever. And here's the coolest verse of all of it right here. For I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last day he will stand upon the earth. And after my skin has been thus destroyed, yet in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold, and not another. My heart faints within me. If you say, how will we pursue him? And the root of the matter is found in him. Be afraid of the sword, for the wrath brings the punishment of the sword, that you may know there is a judgment. And so you can see he's still kind of push. But the anchor point, and this is where Job is really a righteous man. In all the problems and all the struggle and all the arguments and all the things that's happening, he stands by verse 25, which says, for I know that my Redeemer lives. I mean, that right there is everything. I'm not saying situations don't get tough. They do. But when the one who saves us is highly functional, always there, he says, my Redeemer lives. And at the last, he will stand upon the earth. He's not going anywhere. In the beginning, God, he created this thing. God's not shaken by creation. Creation is shaken by God. So he doesn't understand. And let's be perfectly honest. Who in here understands everything that God's doing right now in your life? I don't. And I pray for some stuff to happen, and it's like, God, where are you on this one, man? I would like to know some stuff, you know. I'm kind of, I don't know. But I know this, my Redeemer lives. I stand with Job in that statement. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how God's going to write the whole thing out, how everything's going to come about, and how all things will be. But I know that all these things, it's just a small item. James tells us that life is like just a wisp of air, and it's gone. The little time that you and I spend on this dirt, just a small amount of time. The world's been around for 6,000 years. We're not going to see a fraction of that. Inside of that, God was in the beginning, before all things, and He'll be at the end in all things. You know, the world may be crashing down around us, and it is for Job. And he's just, he's frustrated, and of course, kind of crying out for help. So it's there right there. Anyways, have mercy on me, have mercy on me. And he's talking specifically to, oh, you, my friends. I'll say this to you too. The friends that you have today may not be the friends you have tomorrow. The family that you have today may not be the family you have tomorrow. It's just how it is. Why? Because everything's temporal for us, isn't it? I have good friends, and I've had friends that were good friends. And things divided us, whether it be death, arguments, or something, things have divided us. But one thing I'll never not have is Jesus. I'll have Jesus till the day I'm gone. And when I'm gone, I'm going to go to be with Him. So I'll have Him even more. Like I got the little taste and a touch of it here, but I'll have more in eternity with Jesus. And so for this time that I'm here, if I can stay focused, if you guys can stay focused, think about this for just a minute. We'll close here in just a second. If you can stay focused on what eternal rewards we have, which is eternity with Jesus, and are we going to have some struggles in the interim? 100%. You know, some of you are younger than others. You have a long road of struggles that are coming up, and that's fine. It's supposed to happen that way. That's what makes us stronger. That's what makes us grow and become better. Some of us are a little bit further down that path. We're like, we've made most of our mistakes, and we're ready to go be with Jesus, right? We all kind of at different stages. But the one constant that we all have is Jesus. Now, if you don't have Jesus, then that's a problem. Fix it. But we all have Jesus. Or at least we have the opportunity to Jesus. And so if we'll keep that in our brains, keep that in our little stride and the pattern and the path that we're going, I think we'll be okay. Listen, it's a rough time for Job right now, but things are going to get better. It doesn't seem like that probably, but things are definitely going to get better for Job. His friends will end up, that conversation will end at some point soon, thankfully. And he'll be there with God talking to him, and it's going to be, I'm looking forward to that part. You guys are like, this is the most amazing part of the Bible. It will be at that time, right? 'Cause everything's difficult. But we're looking forward to that because God's going to teach Job something. But Job, and maybe we're like this too a little bit. We trust God. Not really sure how or why, but we trust God. Don't ever lose that. Always trust God. And you're going to go through some stuff. You guys, again, like the younger people, you get way more time to go through stuff. But you're going to have to learn how to trust God. And what's cool is as you trust God, you see Him work through the things. The further you get, like the easier it becomes, the more solid you become. And you're like, man, don't worry, God's got this. And I've had to learn some stuff the hard way in the last few decades of my life. Been married 28 years. You know, I'm a little bit older than 18 years old, right? Does a gray hair give me away? Let's pray. Lord, we thank you this evening. We're thankful for the example given by Job and his friends, as horrible as they were. We ask, Lord, for your direction, your guidance, that we would be able to serve you, love you, and understand things about you way more clearly. Lord, as we navigate this time in our lives, as we try to figure out and focus on you, give us wisdom that we can do just that. Lord, help us to have patience with the people around us that are there to argue and nothing more. Help us to show love to those people who would try to cause division in our lives. And Lord, if we become those people to someone else, remind us of your words, remind us of your love, and remind us, Lord, that you're in control and not us. Help us not try to get over ourselves and just feel more important than we really are. We can only do this, Lord, through your strength and through your mercy. And so we ask, Lord, for that, for your strength, for your mercy, Lord, that we would be guided and directed by you. Lord, we do thank you. We love and praise you and ask all this in Jesus' name.